semakin tertutup atau kuyu. Lupa kejadian di waktu-waktu terakhir.
Malaysia and Cambodia to convene Joint Trade Committee. Government mulls kill switch legislation to fight online fraud. Good evening and salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching Malaysia Tonight. My name is Darryl Baptist. We begin with news from a neighbouring country in Southeast Asia. Malaysia and Cambodia today agreed to convene a Joint Trade Committee, or JTC, this year to explore potential trade and investments as well as tourism that will benefit both countries. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said under this new trade mechanism, both countries would explore cooperation between the Customs Department to facilitate the movement of goods.
We have huge potential in terms of boosting trade volume, palm oil, white rice, and the trade ministries of both countries will use the Joint Technical Committee platform to address these challenges and find solutions, both trade and tourism. We should expect more investments into Cambodia and from Cambodia into Malaysia.
He said this during a joint press conference with his Cambodian counterpart, Han Manet, at Perdana Putra. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said the value of investments by Malaysian companies in Cambodia has exceeded $3 billion to date. The Cambodian leader arrived in Malaysia today for a one-day official visit at the invitation of Datuk Seri Anwar, since his appointment as Cambodia's Prime Minister in August last year. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said that Malaysia and Cambodia will explore new flight routes to expand connectivity between the two countries.
We explored the issue of tourism and 47 flights a week from Cambodia to Kuala Lumpur and Kuala Lumpur to Cambodia. But then you have suggested, and I agreed, that we should explore new routes to expand this, because there is a huge potential in both our countries.
Earlier, Datuk Seri Anwar and Han Manet witnessed the exchange of a Memorandum of Understanding, or an MOU, on the cooperation in financial innovation and payment systems between Bank Negara Malaysia and the National Bank of Cambodia. The MOU between the central banks is meaningful because this has been one of the pillars in terms of dealing with the issue or problem with currency.
We have had relative success with China, and it's 25% of our total trade is in our local currency. With Thailand, but 18%, Indonesia, but 20%. With Cambodia, I think using local currencies would, of course, lessen the burden and the pressure of having to be tied only to the US dollar.
The government is mulling a new legislation to introduce a kill switch to allow any scam activity to be halted immediately. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Law and Institutional Reforms, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman Syed, said there is an urgent need to legislate a kill switch that will immediately stop scam activities on any online domains or platforms in Malaysia.
Kerajaan Madani sedang giat mengatur pelbagai usaha secara strategik bagi menerangi isu ini secara efektif dan pada kadar yang segera.
The minister said that several other laws are also being reviewed, including the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds from Unlawful Activities Act 2001, Act 613, the Penal Code Act 574 and the Criminal Procedure Code Act 593 to enable stolen money to be returned to victims. She added that the Working Committee on the drafting of new laws related to cybercrime held its first meeting on 5th February, which was jointly chaired by her, Communications Minister Fahmi Fadil and Digital Minister Gobind Singh Dio. Datuk Seri Azalina also said that as many as 71,631 fraud reports involving losses of 245 million ringgit were received by the National Scam Response Centre from 12 October 2022 to 31st January this year. The Madani medical scheme will be refined to focus on specific districts and beneficiaries to increase its effectiveness and sustainability, as well as to maximize the impact. The implementation areas will only be focused on 10 designated districts, including the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur, Gombak, Hulu Langat, Petaling Jaya and Klang in Selangor. The scheme, which was launched as a pilot program on 15th June last year, is also focused on Johor Bahru in Johor, Kinta in Perak, Timur Laut in Pulau Pinang, Kota Kinabalu in Sabah and Kuching in Sarawak. Protect Health Corporation Sendirian Berhad, more commonly known as Protect Health, a wholly owned subsidiary of Protect Health Malaysia, established under the Ministry of Health, said that private clinics that participated in the Madani medical scheme, which are active in the designated districts, can continue to provide the scheme's services. It said the initiative, which aimed at reducing congestion and patient waiting time at the Ministry's health facilities in urban areas, is currently still in the improvement phase. In terms of delivery and implementation, where congestion in facilities under the pilot phase is seen to have improved. Sultan Sharafuddin Idris Shah today reminded the civil servants in Selangor not to adopt a negligent and lazy attitude to the extent of causing delays and problems in the implementation of development projects in the state. The Selangor ruler also advised the civil servants to make a paradigm shift in every task and responsibility entrusted to them.
Kita mahu agar training, birokrasi dan peraturan yang menyesuaikan dalam urusan-urusan kerajaan dikurangkan segera. Perlu ada sense of urgency dan bertindak segera dalam memastikan perkhidmatan berkaitan rakyat diselesaikan dengan pantas dan sempurna.
His Highness said this when opening the second session of the 15th State Legislative Assembly in Shah Alam today. The ruler added that the State Assembly sitting should serve as the best example to the public, where all debates must be conducted with integrity and responsibility. They should also avoid the spread of false accusations and the exaggeration of sensitive issues or fake news. The sitting is scheduled to run for 2 weeks, starting tomorrow. Still ahead in our business segment, Knuckle to discuss proposal to exclude utilities from SST hike. Malaysia has ratified the World Trade Organization or WTO's Fisheries Subsidies Agreement or FSA, which is a global effort to curb harmful fishing subsidies and protect fish stocks. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz said Malaysia joins 68 other WTO members which have successfully ratified the FSA. The minister said the ratification demonstrated Malaysia's commitment to global cooperation and responsible stewardship of its oceans. He is currently attending the 13th WTO Ministerial Conference in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, where the FSA was ratified. Adopted in June 2022, the FSA addresses key threats to oceans and promotes sustainable fishing practices. It is a powerful step towards eliminating illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, which contributed to overfishing and thus preserving the delicate balance of marine ecosystems. Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul said the FSA will also ensure that any subsidy on fishing activities provided by member countries is transparent and accountable. He also noted that the WTO will establish technical assistance and capacity building programs to help the developing and least developing countries integrate sustainability elements into their policies and strengthen their fisheries management systems. The meeting of the National Action Council on Cost of Living, also referred to as NACOL, on the 20th of March, will discuss the proposal to exempt water and electricity bills from the Sales and Service or SST tax hike. Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Dato' Armizan Muhammad Ali said that matters related to the SST hike were discussed in the Implementation Monitoring Committee meeting 2 weeks ago.
Perkara berkaitan kenaikan SST ini memang dalam mesyuarat jawatankuasa pemantauan pelaksanaan dipengerusikan oleh Yang Berhormat TPM yang lepas, kira-kira 2 minggu lepas, memang ada satu paper khusus untuk kita melihat kesan dan impaknya, dan insya-Allah perkara yang dibangkitkan oleh Yang Berhormat Aritam ini kita akan bawa untuk dikaji.
Dato' Armizan also said through NACOL, the government ensures that every policy formulation and program implemented through ministries and agencies will take into consideration the cost of living elements. He said the government had allocated 58.1 billion ringgit in the 2024 budget for subsidies, incentives and assistance in addressing various issues related to the people's cost of living burden. The initiatives include the Madani Ramah sales, Madani Agro sales, Rahmah Cash Aid, as well as My 50 Unlimited Travel Pass. RAM Ratings Services Berhad, or simply RAM Ratings, has maintained its forecast of Malaysia's gross domestic product or GDP growth at 4.5% to 5.5% this year. The leading credit rating agency also believed that there is an upside lift for the economy this year, despite the fourth quarter of 2023, Q4 2023 performance, which grew at 3.0%. It said the chance of a soft landing appears to be higher for the global economy, with the International Monetary Fund or IMF raising its 2024 global growth forecast by 0.2 percentage points to 3.1% last month. It said Malaysia's export growth also contracted at a slower pace of 6.9% in Q4 2023, with the January 2024 print showing a rebound in growth to 8.7%. Furthermore, RAM Ratings said the latest inflation print in January leaves to point towards easing of price pressures, which, along with a robust job market and supportive financial conditions, could propel domestic demand higher this year. Up ahead, key risks on the horizon remain, with the timing of interest rate cuts in the United States exerting potential market volatility and imported price pressures for the domestic market due to weak ringgit valuation. It noted that Malaysia's 2023 GDP growth stood at 3.7% versus the consensus 4.0%, mainly due to weaker export demand and cooler consumption momentum. Now, Bank Negara Malaysia, or BNM, has stepped up its engagements with government-linked investment companies, government-linked companies, corporations and investors to encourage continuous inflows to the foreign exchange market. Governor Dato' Abdul Rashid Ghaffur said the ringgit is undervalued. Elaborating further through a brief statement released today, Dato' Abdul Rashid said given Malaysia's positive economic fundamentals and prospects, the ringgit ought to be traded higher. Previously, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said the Madani government is not ignoring or taking the decline of the ringgit lightly, and it is making continuous efforts to address the issue while simultaneously assuring Malaysia's investment figures remain intact. He said the central central bank has been assigned to monitor the ringgit closely. And on the government side, relevant ministries and authorities, including the Investment Council, are conducting daily meetings to tackle the issue. The Premier noted that the situation is concerning, but advised everyone to look at the overall investments, which are the biggest ever for the country. He added that inflation and unemployment continue to go down, while growth is sustained compared to the other neighbouring countries. The Department of Statistics Malaysia says businesses are anticipating improved conditions in the first quarter of 2024, with a positive confidence indicator of 4.2%, up from 3.2% in the fourth quarter or Q4 of 2023. In a statement, Chief Statistician Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin said businesses are confident about the business environment in this quarter, with the confidence indicator continuing its increasing trend since the third quarter of last year. All sectors expect stronger business conditions in Q1 2024. After reverting to a positive trajectory, the construction sector continues its positive momentum with a confidence indicator of plus 10.3% from plus 1.7% in the previous quarter. Meanwhile, the industry sectors remain on a positive trajectory with a confidence indicator of plus 0.6% for the quarter under review compared to plus 4.0% in Q4 2023. Looking ahead, Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzair said business perception for the first half of this year has improved marginally, with a net balance of plus 10% against the plus 9.8% recorded previously, with all sectors showing positive signs. He said the wholesale and retail trade sector is turning optimistic about the business landscape in the first half of this year. Adding to that, the fall in Malaysia's Producer Price Index, or PPI, which measures the prices of goods at the factory gate, has narrowed, declining a marginal 0.6% in January this year, versus a negative 1.3% in December 2023. In a statement, Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzair attributed the decline mainly to the mining sector's PPI, with a fall that has also narrowed by 1.3% against a 3.4% drop in December last year, due to a 6.8% drop in the natural gas extraction index. The PPI comprises indices from 5 sectors, that is mining, agricultural, forestry and fishing, manufacturing, electricity and gas supply, and water supply. January 2024 PPI for manufacturing also improved, declining by 0.9% versus a 1.5% fall in December 2023, while the agriculture, forestry and fishing sector continued to lend support to the overall PPI, rising 3.2% versus a 1.3% growth in December 2023. The water supply index also posted a 0.6% gain in January versus a 0.4% growth in the previous month. The statement also said January's PPI for electricity and gas supply sector saw a 0.8% decline versus a 0.6% fall in the prior month. The PPI for the different stages of processing comprises 3 stages, namely crude materials for further processing, the intermediate stage, and the finished goods stage. The International Green Tech and Eco Products Exhibition and Conference Malaysia, also known as IGEM 2024, has targeted 4.8 billion ringgit in business leads, 480 exhibitors and 48,000 visitors from over 48 countries. Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability Minister Nik Ahmad said IGEM 2024 is based on 5 sub-themes, namely empowering cities, electrifying mobility, decarbonizing energy, accelerating circularity, and protecting biodiversity. Nik Nazmi said there will also be a dedicated industry zone for hydrogen and other carbon technologies and a central zone showcasing integrated partner innovation from leading global companies.
So for us, IGEM is very relevant towards addressing the urgency of climate change. and we hope that this year we will continue to attract loyal as well as new exhibitors, sponsors and participants. And for this year, we are pushing the boundaries to develop iGEM's footprint in Europe, the Middle East and North Africa through industry-curated leadership roundtables, summits and congresses.
Themed Race Towards Net Zero Regional Leadership for Climate Urgency, IGEM 2024, will be held at Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre from 9th to 11th October. The government has given approval for the 1 billion ringgit worth of Penang International Airport's expansion and upgrade, which will be handled by Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad, commonly known as MAHB. Transport Minister Anthony Locke said the actual cost will only be determined after the tender process, as there are also plans to expand and upgrade the facilities and infrastructure near the airport.
It was approved by the Cabinet. So the funding model will be borne by MHB through an investment recovery model. That means that over time they can recoup their investment by their expenses to expand the Penang International Airport. The Penang International Airport will cost more than 1 billion, but it will go through a tender process by MHB.
Locke said the government is hopeful that the entire project can start immediately this year and be completed in about 4 years. Furthermore, Locke mentioned that AirAsia has submitted a request to his ministry and has received preliminary approval to impose specific charges for the carbon levy. He emphasized that the charges are intended to be minimal and will be determined by market forces, as high carbon taxes could deter people from flying. RHB Bank Berhad's net profit for the financial year ended 31st December 2023, or FY 2023, rose 4.8% to 2.81 billion ringgit from 2.68 billion ringgit in the preceding year due to higher non-fund-based income and lower allowances for credit losses. This was achieved on the back of 26.3% higher revenue of 16.58 billion ringgit. Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer Muhammad Rashid Muhammad said non-fund-based income was up by 30.3% to 2.3 billion ringgit, but the better performance was partially offset by lower net fund-based income. Total income was 7.77 billion ringgit, of which net fund-based income stood at 5.45 billion ringgit on the back of higher funding costs, mainly due to fixed deposit growth of 14.3% year-on-year, or YOY. Meanwhile, expected credit losses declined 28.4% YOY to 301.53 million ringgit. He also noted that gross loans increased 4.8%, attributed mainly to growth in Singapore and group community banking, while domestic loan growth stood at 3.4%. Total assets grew by 5.8% to 328.69 billion ringgit as at 31st December last year. RHB Bank's net interest margin for the year, meanwhile, was 1.82%. Japanese inflation slowed less than expected to 2% in January, hitting the central bank's target and affirming expectations of an end to its outlier negative rates policy. Other major central banks, including the US Federal Reserve, have hiked borrowing costs because of rising prices since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago, and may soon start cutting again. But haunted by decades of deflation, the Bank of Japan has stuck to its unorthodox sub-zero interest rates. The nation slipped into a technical recession in late 2023, and the bank views current inflation as driven by temporary factors such as higher energy costs. Instead, it wants to see more evidence of a virtuous cycle of price increases fueled by demand and higher wages. According to government data, consumer prices rose 2% year-on-year in January, from 2.3% in December, the third straight monthly easing. The dip in the core consumer price index, which does not include volatile fresh food prices, was slightly less pronounced than expected, with economists polled by Bloomberg predicting 1.9%. But the reading continued a broad trend of cooling inflation over the past year. Coming up in our foreign segment, South Korea empowers nurses as strikes continue. South Korea has granted nurses new powers and legal protections and launched an investigation into a patient's death as hospital chaos caused by striking trainee doctors entered a second week. Major hospitals are struggling to provide services after thousands of junior medics handed in their resignation and stopped working last week to protest against government plans to sharply increase medical school admissions in the face of a rapidly aging society. The government said it would launch an investigation after a patient died of cardiac arrest in an ambulance after struggling to find a hospital. Emergency services contacted 7 different hospitals, but were told there were no trainee doctors. The mass work stoppage has also resulted in cancellations and postponements of surgeries for cancer patients and C-sections for pregnant women, with the government raising its public health alert to the highest level over the fallout. Nurses will now be allowed to perform some medical procedures previously reserved for doctors and offered immunity from any potential lawsuits linked to their new scope of work. The administrations of each hospital can work with nurses to decide which tasks they can perform. Senegal's President Macky Sall has proposed a general amnesty bill for political protesters arrested since 2021 as he holds talks to end fresh turmoil over delayed elections. The West African nation is facing its worst political crisis in decades after Sall abruptly deferred the 25th February presidential vote just hours before campaigning was due to begin. The Constitutional Council overturned the delay, and Sall, whose second term is scheduled to end on 2nd April, launched 2 days of talks to set a new poll date. He announced the amnesty bill at the start of what he called a national dialogue, suggesting it could reunite the country. He said he will put before the National Assembly this Wednesday in the Council of Ministers a bill for a general amnesty for acts relating to political demonstrations that took place between 2021 and 2024. He added, this will make it possible to pacify the political arena. According to some rights groups, over 1,000 people have been arrested since 2021 during the power struggle between opposition leader Ousmane Sonko and the state.
Isu-isu sukan tempatan di pelbagai arena, pelbagai gelanggang. Pencapaian dan kontroversi akan dikupas dan dibincangkan dalam Planet Sukan setiap Ahad 10 malam di TV1 dan saluran sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara penstrima langsung di RTM Klik.
And that concludes this evening's edition of Malaysia Tonight. In our top story, Malaysia and Cambodia to convene Joint Trade Committee. Do tune in to World Today coming up tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. on TV2. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Darryl Baptist. Thank you for watching and have a good evening.